Hello, Waterford Wesleyan Church Online. My name is Pastor Matt. I'm the assistant pastor here at Waterford Wesleyan Church, and I've just got 3 quick announcements for you before we get going into today's message. And they are this. This upcoming Thursday, that is the 20th, we are starting a women's group called Finding I Am, led by our very own Tracy Morse. This is a group that's going to be meeting, like I said, on Thursdays, starting this Thursday, April 20th, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at the Barnes House across the driveway from the church. And to sign up for that, you can either text the word women, plural, women, to 518-223-8662, or there's a link in the description below. Or if you're thinking about this later on, you can visit our website at waterfordwc.com. Next announcement is this next week, starting on the 24th, that's a Monday, we are going to be starting our men's group on leadership led by Pastor Paul here at the church in the fellowship hall. And again, that goes from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And to sign up for that, you can text the word men, again, plural, to 518-223-8662, or the link's in the description below, or you can visit us at waterfordwc.com and sign up that way. Third announcement is this. Next Saturday, that's the 22nd, we are going to be doing a Waterford cleanup. And what that means is we are going to be taking from the bridge to the bridge. And if you're from Waterford, you know exactly what that means. Bridge to bridge on Saratoga Ave. And we're just going to be cleaning things up. As the weather has gotten nice, like all of a sudden, and the snow's melted, sometimes it can be a little bit messy. And we just want to be able to serve our community in that way. So if you want to do that, you can text the word spring cleaning, all one word, spring cleaning, to 518-223-8662. Or, again, the link will be in the description below. Or, again, you can visit us at waterfordwc.com and sign up for that. So, women's group, men's group, Waterford spring cleanup. We hope you can join us for at least one of, if not all of, those things there. So, with that out of the way, here's Pastor Paul.
Experience has a way of warping my understanding of a biblical reality. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I say that, I mean things like the meek shall inherit the earth. It doesn't feel like that's true, right? Or Jesus says things like this, greatness is found in serving. Here's another one that'll melt your brain, is where Jesus flips everything upside down and he says all the things that you store up on this earth essentially mean nothing. Or forgiveness doesn't make that person right, it sets you free. I mean, it's just like when I think about my life and I think about my life experience, I look at that and I go, that doesn't always work out, Jesus. I mean, that's not what I necessarily see in front of me. Because often you're confronted with a biblical worldview and then what's happening around you, and they don't always add up. You see, when you choose to say, okay, my circumstance is showing me this, but the Bible tells me something completely different, that serving is greatness. When I choose to live in that reality, as opposed to the circumstances that may be surrounding me, that's called faith. And so when I'm confronted with these things, I have to approach it from a perspective of faith. Will the meek really inherit the earth? Does forgiveness really set you free? I mean, these are things that you have to start processing through. And I have one more that I want to share with you today that I kind of ran into and hit a wall with and went, okay, that's really tough to buy, Jesus. I mean, it's pretty inflexible statement that he makes. And I want to share this with you because when I read it many years ago, I thought to myself, well, that sounds nice and all, but let's come back to reality, Jesus. I appreciate that, but that's not the way the world really works. Let me share one more of those. Hey, this is what Jesus says the way it really is, and this is the way the world tells me it really is, and I'm going to choose to believe that Jesus is right. So let's take a look at Matthew chapter 7, beginning at verse 7. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you, then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Let me just say right out of the gate, my life experience has taught me that isn't really the way the world works. I've asked for things and didn't receive. I've sought things out and didn't find them. I've knocked and I've either been at the wrong house or nobody's been home. I mean, these are realities for me, but Jesus says, very inflexibly says, these things will happen for you. And I can go, well, not quite, Jesus. It doesn't work like that. And I'm going to give you an example, and it's kind of an embarrassing example, but it reinforces in my life day after day of how I can tend to believe what the world around me is telling me all the time. So here we go. It wasn't that long ago. I almost hate to admit this. It wasn't that long ago there were these boots that I found that I had to have. Yeah, I know. I get it. It's pathetic, but here we are. I had to have these boots, and they didn't have them in my size. So I said to the clerk, I asked her, do you have any more of those in the back? And with a little bit of an eye roll, she gave me a curt no, basically leave me alone. So, I left the store, and on my way home, I didn't even go home yet. I was in the parking lot, and you know what I did? Because I took a picture of the model number of the shoe, I started to search it out online. I started to look at different stores, that particular store online, other stores online, and I searched for those boots in my size, and guess what? I came up empty again. Not to be finished there, I kept going, because it wasn't just about asking the clerk if they had them. It wasn't about just searching it online. Now I'm going to every store in the area, walking through those doors as they open up, and I head in there and I search out every store for those shoes and those boots, but again, came up empty. So I asked the clerk, I sought it out online, and I went and knocked on every store's door, and I came up empty. And those kinds of things reinforce the idea that, maybe Jesus wasn't right. But I want to tell you repeatedly, in things that really matter, he is right. Because it's easy for me to reason and go, well, you know what? It doesn't work that way with these boots that I want, but how can it work in more important things? And I want to tell you it does, because Jesus tells us the truth, as opposed to sometimes our circumstances aren't as real as we may think they are. And just in case we run into those places where we're like, it sounds great, Jesus, but really? And the answer is yes, really. Here's what I was confronted with. Jesus says, he makes an inflexible claim. He says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. There's one word there that gives you no wiggle room. There's one word there that makes this an inflexible claim, and that is will. You will find. You will receive, and it will be opened. So, since that isn't my reality far more than boots, either Jesus isn't telling the truth or I'm missing something. And I am convinced of this. I'm missing something. So, let's explore a little bit more of what we just started to look at there. Ask, seek, and knock. So let's start with asking. Verse 7 says this, ask and it will be given to you. Verse 8 then goes on to say this, for everyone who asks, receives. Ask carries with it this idea of an inferior asking a superior. You asking your boss for a raise, a child asking a parent. You kind of get the idea. It's an inferior asking a superior. That's exactly what Jesus is communicating right here when he says you ask. It actually harkens back to Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, when Jesus teaches us how to pray, and he starts this way, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. And I've said this to you many times, and I'm going to say it again. That always sets the stage for the way things need to be, that God is God and I am not. And just to reinforce that reality is this. If I am God, I don't need to ask. That means I have limits when I ask God. And God is limitless. It's the limited asking the limitless. And that's where we find ourselves. Jesus' promise is this, that when you ask, you will receive. That's a pretty strong promise, unless, of course, it's those Chelsea boots that I'm just... Anyway. But it's not done there. When you need to discover God's will for your life, you're praying, you're seeking him. He says, ask and you will receive. And just in case he's drawing you further along, it doesn't end there. It's not just about asking. It's also about seeking. I didn't end with the boots. I kept searching them out. And when it comes to things important like God's will for my life, an answered prayer, seeking him, will I just ask or will I continue on and search him out? Look at back to verse 7. Notice the progression of persistence. Jesus says, seek and you will find in verse 7. Verse 8, the one who seeks finds. Seeking takes a little more persistence. It's a little more effort. When I was rejected by the clerk, I didn't stop there. I kept searching them out. Searching is a little more persistence. It's asking a little bit more from you to get the answer, to get the direction. And Jesus promises this, if we will seek him out, if we will search him, he will reveal himself to you. You will find the answer. You will find what you are looking for, and you will find it from him. The two problems that I usually run into here to this searching part is this. I may ask and then fizzle out and not do the extra work of searching. Or two, my searching comes up empty because I have a preconceived idea of how Jesus is going to answer. Or I've already decided the way that God's going to work it out. And I'm not talking about boots here. I'm talking about something far more important, what really matters. Things like where you stand with God, His will for your life, just seeking His heart in prayer. Who am I in Christ? Those are the things that I'm talking about asking God and searching Him out to answer those deep-seated questions in your life. Because you have questions in your mind about Jesus. You have questions that you have for Jesus, and you have questions about what's next in your life, and you desire an answer. Searching and asking is a core part of finding out how to the answer to those questions. And the issue is this, isn't so much will God answer, because I told you that part's inflexible. Will you ask? Will you search? Are you searching? You see, because what we come back to is it's the limited seeking the limitless. It's not just asking, it's searching as well. So you ask, you ratchet it up a little bit when you're seeking God, and you seek Him out, and you look for His will and His plan in your life, but you don't end there. There's a little more effort that needs to be put forward. If there's still not an answer, then you knock. Back to verse 7. Knock and the door will be open to you. Verse 8, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Knocking. Think about it this way. Knocking on a door gives you access to a place you haven't had access to before. It opens up all kinds of new possibilities. Charles Spurgeon, the theologian, said it this way: it would be of no use to knock at a wall, but you may wisely knock at a door, for it is arranged for opening. I know that sounds obvious, but just that wording went right. Why would you knock at a wall unless you're looking for a stud? But you knock at a door, and the door is arranged to be open. That means it's designed to open. And when God tells us, Jesus tells us to knock at a door, it's designed to be open. He wants you to discover the newness in your life. He wants you to discover more of His will in your life. That's what He wants, and He wants you to pursue Him to do so by asking, seeking, and knocking. You see, what's closed off to you at the moment doesn't have to be. It doesn't need to remain that way. There may be parts of God's will for your life where you feel like your asking led you to searching, and searching brought you to a door, and that door is closed. Now, what you must do is knock. Will you be that persistent to continue to seek Him out and knock at the door? Or maybe just a little bit of a sidebar, will I knock at the right door? Because the truth is, sometimes I've knocked at the wrong door, and when I went in there, it led me farther away from God. Seeking Him and being willing to receive what He gives. Because if I'm pursuing God, I am then knocking at the right door. What I receive is always going to line up with Scripture. God promised to open the door to you and give you a new area and access to a life that you have not had access to before. The opening of a door is a profound discovery. So it's not just about asking and receiving. It's not about just seeking and finding. It's about opening a whole new reality of God's will and plan for your life, far beyond anything you could have ever dreamed. That's what lies behind the door, but you have to knock, and it will be opened. You will receive, you will find, it will be open. That's the promise. Consider what that means for you, as I'm considering what it means for me in God's will and His plan for your life and for mine. Will I have the persistence to keep asking, seeking, knocking, even when the world around me is telling me that it just doesn't work that way? And two, what separates me oftentimes from God's response is time or my willingness to be persistent in asking, seeking, and knocking. Now, just in case you have in the back of your mind, you're thinking, why would God care? Why does it matter? He wants me to pursue Him. Does it really matter? Does He really care? Jesus reminds us that God will respond to your persistence for one simple reason: because He loves you. That's it. And one of the most interesting things about all of this, as I've been studying this portion of Scripture, is this. Jesus uses a very real human experience to clarify that. Listen to what He says in Matthew chapter 7, verses 9 and 11. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask Him? That's a real life experience. We can all relate to that on some level. Like, yeah, that's right. Whether it's from the father perspective or from the child perspective, we've all been there in some way or another where we've asked our parent for something, or we are the parent and we are giving. And we know in there, even if we didn't have the greatest parent situation, we've at least seen that and experienced that maybe through a friend or somebody else, but we know that's a reality. And Jesus uses a reality of an example to teach us something that sometimes you go, it just doesn't make sense. And he gives good gifts to those who have asked, sought, and knocked. And remember, good isn't a thing, good is God. So ultimately, he gives God gifts to those who search him out, who diligently, persistently ask, seek, and knock. You discover the will of God in your life. So I don't know where you are. Maybe it's something you've been praying for. Maybe you've been trying to discover what God's leading you into next. Or maybe there's just an unsettledness in your heart. Whatever it may be, today I encourage you to be persistent. Do not quit. I don't care what the circumstances look like. Pursue God. Ask him. Seek him. And keep knocking. His promise is he will. The inflexibility of Jesus' promise is he will answer you.